The 2024 Golden Boy winner. Lamine Yamal isn't just another promising youngster, he's a once-in-a-generation talent. A player already writing history before most teenagers even make their professional debut. But how did he get here? How did a kid from a small neighborhood in Spain, once just a boy playing street football with dreams of the Camp Nou, become Barcelona's most exciting wonder kid since Lionel Messi? This is the story of Lamine Yamal, the new face of Barcelona. And if you think this is just another hype story, think again, because what this kid has already done at just 17 years old is not just special, it's unprecedented. The streets of Rocafonda, 304. Lamine Yamal wasn't born into football greatness. He built it, street by street, game by game. Born on July 13th, 2007 in Mataró, Spain, his real football education started in Rocafonda 304, a neighborhood where the game isn't played for trophies or contracts but for pride. The pitches, concrete. The defenders, unforgiving. The intensity, non-stop. If you wanted to stand out, you had to be tough, smart and fearless. And Yamal, he was all three. From the very start, he had something different. The touch, the vision, the effortless dribbling. It was like the ball belonged to him. Defenders, just obstacles. He wasn't playing against them. He was playing with them. Coaches at local academies couldn't believe their eyes. How was a kid this young seeing passes no one else could? How was he dancing through defenders like they weren't even there?
Ready to launch your Instagram to new heights? Don't get left behind while your competition thrives. Kicksta helps you skyrocket.
But while his talent was undeniable, his roots were just as important. Flags on his boots, a reminder of where he comes from, a message to the world. He's not just representing Barcelona, he's representing something bigger. And if Barcelona had already seen enough, one trial, one session, that's all it took. No waiting, no second chances. Straight into La Masia. And just like Messi 2 decades earlier, Yamal didn't just join La Masia, he changed the rules. Most kids his age would have been eased in, starting with their own age group. But Yamal, he was beyond that. Barcelona knew it instantly. They pushed him ahead, multiple age groups up, competing against kids much older, stronger, faster, and yet, he still made them look ordinary. His dribbling, untouchable, his playmaking, way ahead of his years. Barcelona's academy had produced legends, but this kid, he was different. And just like that, Barcelona had found their next generational talent. The La Masia years, a prodigy in the making. If you dominate the streets, you might make it to a club. If you dominate La Masia, you're built for greatness. And from the moment Lamine Yamal set foot in Barcelona's legendary academy, he wasn't just another promising talent. He was rewriting expectations. The numbers? Insane. 301 goals in 151 games in 7-a-side football. That's 2 goals per game. Numbers that scream dominance. But this wasn't just a kid scoring for fun. He was dismantling defenses, creating goals out of nothing, and making future professionals look like amateurs. But here's where things got interesting. When he transitioned to 11-a-side football, something changed. His goal tally dropped. Not because he was struggling, but because his game was evolving. Yamal wasn't just a scorer. He was an artist, a conductor. His vision, passing and dribbling became even more dangerous. And suddenly, Barcelona weren't just looking at a goal machine, they were looking at a complete forward. And it wasn't just Barcelona noticing. At 12 years old, Yamal lit up the La Liga Promises tournament, scoring 7 goals and leading Barcelona to a 6-1 demolition of Real Madrid in the final. The game was a showcase of what was coming, a player with the footwork of a street baller and the IQ of a veteran. One coach famously said after that tournament, he played like a professional trapped in a kid's body, and that's when Barcelona knew they had to protect him. Normally, La Masia only allows players from outside Catalonia to live in the residency program, but Yamal, they broke the rule. They moved him in, controlling his diet, his rest, and his training schedule. Why? Because they had seen this before. They had seen a left-footed magician from Argentina walk the same path, and they weren't about to risk losing another one. Lamine Yamal wasn't just another academy player anymore. He was Barcelona's next obsession, and the world was about to see why. The breakthrough. A star is born. April 29th, 2023. Barcelona versus Real Betis. The Camp Nou had seen legends rise. Ronaldinho, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi. And now, it was about to witness the birth of a new era. At just 15 years, 9 months and 16 days, Lamine Yamal became the youngest player to ever debut for Barcelona's first team since 1922. Think about that. At an age where most kids are worrying about high school exams, Yamal was stepping onto the same pitch where legends were made. And he didn't freeze. He didn't shy away. He played like he belonged. Within minutes of coming on, he nearly scored, his shot saved only by the reflexes of Claudio Bravo. Moments later, he created a perfect chance for Ousmane Dembélé, only for the Frenchman to miss an easy tap-in. But the most telling moment, the stand for Ousmane Dembélé, only for the Frenchman to miss an easy tap-in. But the most telling moment, the standing ovation from the fans. Barcelona fans don't just applaud youngsters for showing up, they applaud them when they see something special. And in Yamal, they saw the future. Even Xavi, a man who has played alongside some of the greatest footballers in history, was stunned. I haven't seen a player like this at this age since Messi. But this debut wasn't just about giving a young talent minutes, it was a strategic move. Here's the thing, Barcelona knew Yamal's contract situation. If they didn't give him his first team debut before turning 16, European giants could legally swoop in and steal him for free. And they weren't going to let that happen, so they did what they had to do. They secured him, tied him to the club's future, and in doing so, introduced the world to the next great Barcelona wonder kid. This wasn't the end of the story, it was just the beginning. The 2023-24 season, the moment that changed everything. Barcelona's plan was never to rush Lamine Yamal. At just 16 years old, he was supposed to be eased into the first team, given time to develop. But football doesn't follow plans, it follows moments. And Yamal's moment came sooner than expected. Barcelona needed something different. Ansu Fati, once tipped to be Messi's heir, was struggling with injuries. Ousmane Dembélé left for PSG, creating a void on the right wing. Xavi looked at his squad, at his options, and there was one name standing out. August 20th, 2023, Barcelona versus Cadiz. At just 16 years and 38 days, Yamal became the youngest player of the 21st century to start a La Liga match for Barcelona. He played with confidence, taking defenders on, creating chances, and showing no signs of fear. But it was August 27th, 2023, against Villarreal, that truly announced him to the world. A thrilling 4-3 victory, and Yamal was the standout performer. He tormented Villarreal's defense, provided a perfect assist for Gavi's goal, and was rightly named man of the match. Commentators were stunned, fans were in disbelief, and suddenly the whispers began. Was this kid actually ready to lead Barcelona's attack? His next big test? The Champions League. His debut? Historic. September 19th, 2023. He came on as a substitute in a 5-0 win over Antwerp, becoming Barcelona's youngest ever player in Champions League history at just 16 years and 68 days. Then came his first start, against Porto on October 4th, 2023.
Please don't skip. I am sorry again. I am here for my family. We are facing
a high-pressure game in a hostile stadium, and Yamal didn't just survive, he thrived. His confidence on the ball, his decision-making, his ability to glide past defenders. This wasn't just another La Masia talent. This was Barcelona's future. Then came the biggest game of them all, his first El Clasico against Real Madrid on October 28th, 2023. The pressure of the biggest rivalry in football? Please. Yamal played like a veteran, taking on defenders, creating chances, and proving once again that he was no ordinary teenager. And then, the awards started rolling in. The Golden Boy nomination. At just 16, he was the youngest player ever to be nominated for the prestigious award. He even won the Golden Boy's youngest trophy, an award given to the best player under 17. But there was one problem. He couldn't attend the ceremony. Why? Because he had school the next morning. This was the life of Lamine Yamal. One moment he's tearing up La Liga, the next he's back in class, finishing homework. But football wasn't done testing him, because Euro 2024 was coming. Euro 2024, the tournament that changed his career. Most 16-year-olds spend their summer playing FIFA or going to the beach. Lamine Yamal spent his summer making history. Spain had talent: Pedri, Rodri, Nico Williams, but there was one name no one could ignore. At just 16 years and 338 days, Yamal became the youngest player to ever play in a European Championship, and from the moment he stepped onto the pitch, he was a problem. First game versus Croatia, a brilliant assist. Youngest player to ever register an assist in the Euros. Quarter-final versus Germany, another assist. He had now tied Spain's record for the most assists in a single Euro tournament, at 16 years old. But his defining moment, the semi-final against France. Spain were losing. Adrien Rabiot, full of confidence, had dismissed Yamal before the game, saying, "He's good, but he has to do much more if he wants to beat France." Yamal didn't respond with words. He responded with a goal that shook the world. The ball landed at his feet, outside the box, just in front of Rabiot. One touch, one look, and then a curling left-footed strike past Maignan, straight into the top corner.
Nice curl! Oh,
I say, what an unbelievable goal!
Commentators lost their minds. Fans erupted. The youngest goal scorer in Euros history had just silenced Rabiot.
He becomes the youngest player ever to score in a European Championship.
And he made sure to let him know. After the match, reporters asked him about the pre-game trash talk. His answer, a simple, cold reply, talk now. And just like that, Yamal had gone from a rising star to a global sensation. But he wasn't done. The final against England. With the entire world watching, he assisted Nico Williams for the opening goal, becoming the youngest player to register a goal contribution in a Euro final. When the final whistle blew, history had been made. Youngest player to ever win the Euros. Young player of the tournament. Spain's new golden boy. And then, as if the story couldn't get any crazier, he went on to win the 2024 Golden Boy Award, officially cementing himself as the most exciting young talent in world football. Lamine Yamal had arrived, and the scary part? He was just getting started. The future, the next big superstar. Lamine Yamal's rise wasn't just a breakout season. It was a statement. A 17-year-old carrying the weight of Barcelona's attack, thriving under pressure, and delivering when it mattered most. But the question remains, what comes next? Because right now, Yamal isn't just Barcelona's future, he's their present. As of February 2025, he has 18 goals and 15 assists across all competitions, making him one of the most productive teenagers in European football, not just for his age, in the entire continent. His numbers put him in elite company, proving he's more than just a talented youngster. He's a match winner. But stats only tell part of the story. It's the way he does it. Take his goal in the Spanish Super Cup final against Real Madrid. On the biggest stage, in football's fiercest rivalry, Yamal stepped up. A composed finish in a 5-2 win that helped Barcelona lift the trophy. At 17 years old, he was already deciding silverware. But if there was one moment that had Barcelona fans reminiscing about a certain Argentine legend, it was his sensational dribble against Alaves. A run that defied logic, skipping past multiple defenders, gliding through tackles, twisting, turning, and leaving bodies in his wake. It wasn't just skill, it was artistry. It was Messi-esque. And if there was any doubt that Yamal was special, that moment erased it. So now, the inevitable question, is Lamine Yamal the future of Barcelona? Because the last time they had a 16-year-old prodigy, his name was Lionel Messi. Will Yamal reach that level? Will he be the one to lead Barcelona into their next golden era? Or is it too early to make that call? One thing is certain, he's already on the path. Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's debate. And if you thought this was epic, wait until you see the next story on the screen. Click now, before you miss out. Oh, and one last thing, if you're not subscribed,
Descubre la experiencia de GoDaddy Airo al comprar tu dominio en GoDaddy y deja que la inteligencia artificial se encargue de todo. Encuentra el dominio perfecto, crea una web, diseña tu logo y mucho más con la ayuda de la inteligencia artificial. Impulsa tu futuro. Prueba GoDaddy Airo en godaddy.com.
Choosing the right web hosting is like choosing the right place for your website to live. You can share server space and spread costs with shared hosting.
I'm Duncan Bishop, joined by Albert Ferrer today. Albert, this early kick-off.
No, of course, a defender, a central back is always important, and is a big absentee, as we see Lamine doing Lamine.
Well, Lamine Yamal, he's taking the ball on. He's still going. He might find the pass there to the outside. It's Rafinha on the ball. He has players in support. The move deserved a goal, but Rafinha doesn't quite find the target with that strike. But what a run that was from Lamine Yamal.
Well, and he knows that he's a key player for Barcelona. In the late weeks, we've seen how Lamine, every time that he did something, he just tried to, to get the supporters.
The move deserved a goal, but Rafinha doesn't quite find the target with that strike. But what a run that was from Lamine Yamal.
Well, and he knows that he's a key player for Barcelona. In the
Rafinha on the ball, he has players in support. The move deserved a goal, but Rafinha doesn't quite find the target with that strike. But what a run that was from Lamine Yamal.
Well, and he knows that he's a key player for Barcelona. In the late weeks, we've seen how Lamine, every time that he did something, he just tried to, to get the supporters with him. He knows that he's
Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. One of the most fascinating questions I often get asked is about the whereabouts of the 12 tribes of Israel. Did they really disappear in history? In this video, I invite you to join us until the end as we explore not only the theories about the so-called lost tribes, but also the clues and evidence that may shed light on where they have been throughout the centuries. Embark on this incredible journey to unravel the mystery of the 12 tribes. Don't forget to like and share with friends and family who are also interested in this biblical enigma. Let's discover together, where are the 12 tribes of Israel? Did they really vanish? Since the Israelites were freed from bondage in Egypt, they journeyed toward the land of Canaan, the land promised by God to Abraham as an inheritance for his descendants. However, along their journey and settlement, the Israelites frequently disobeyed the laws, guidelines, and commandments that God had given Moses on Mount Sinai. This disobedience brought severe consequences, demonstrating the importance of remaining faithful to the covenant established with the Lord. In the book of Leviticus, both the blessings and penalties associated with the obedience or rebellion of the people of Israel are outlined. God made a solemn covenant with the Israelites, commanding them to follow his instructions and worship him exclusively, rejecting idolatry and avoiding assimilation with the practices, customs, and gods of the peoples inhabiting Canaan or other foreign nations. This covenant was not merely a set of rules, but a commitment to faithfulness that would shape the identity of the people as a holy nation.
Start with a 50% deposit bonus. Increase your investing power with Pocket Broker. 100 plus investing assets. Instant top.
In Leviticus chapter 26, verse 17, God warns about the consequences of disobedience. I will set my face against you, and you will be defeated by your enemies. Those who hate you will rule over you, and you will flee, even though no one pursues you. This verse illustrates one of God's judgments, where Israel, by disregarding the divine covenant, would be handed over to the domination of their enemies and lose their special protection. This penalty not only symbolized the distance from God's presence, but also resulted in a harsh reality. The tribes of Israel could be subjugated, scattered, or absorbed by the surrounding cultures and peoples. This cycle of disobedience and judgment is a recurring theme in Israel's history, reminding us of the importance of faithfulness and obedience to God to experience the blessings of his covenant. In verse 25, we find more details about the punishment announced by God. I will bring adversary nations against you, bringing the sword to avenge my covenant. And when you flee to your cities, I will send the plague among you, and you will fall under the power of the enemy. The tribes of Israel had broken the covenant and alliances with God, turning to idolatry and other sins common among the peoples of the Middle East. In response, God allowed Israel to be dominated by neighboring nations who subjugated the Israelite territory. This is confirmed by history as the last kings of Israel, described by the prophet Hosea in chapter 8, verse 4, were considered illegitimate and usurpers of the throne of Israel. When the tribes turned away from God and gave in to idolatrous practices, he delivered them into the hands of rival peoples who competed for territorial dominance, reducing them to vassals. This period of decline profoundly marked the history of the 12 tribes of Israel, whose dispersion generated numerous theories about their whereabouts. Some believe the tribes integrated into other cultures, while others argue that they kept their identity secret. Furthermore, this apparent disappearance fuels theological and historical debates, encouraging investigations into how God's covenant with Israel is manifested in modern times. One of the most curious and controversial theories suggests that the Israelites were, in fact, ancestors of indigenous tribes in the Americas, meaning that indigenous peoples would descend from the so-called lost tribes of Israel. While this idea has circulated for centuries, it lacks biblical and scientific support. Genetic studies show that indigenous peoples have predominantly Asian origins, with ancestry from populations in the Far East, Siberia, and other regions of Asia. These findings are corroborated by archaeological and linguistic evidence. Another point that refutes this theory is the absence of physical and cultural similarities between indigenous peoples of the Americas and those from the Middle East. Indigenous people exhibit traits that more directly connect them to populations from the Far East, such as the Chinese, Japanese, Mongols, and Siberians. Moreover, the cultural aspects and ways of life of indigenous peoples differ significantly from those of the ancient Israelites. Proponents of this theory often argue that the tribes of Israel, at some point, left their homeland and crossed the world to the Americas. However, this idea faces serious historical problems. For example, indigenous peoples of the Americas did not have technologies typical of the Bronze Age, such as the weapons and tools used by the ancient Israelites. While the Israelites were known for their colorful garments, decorated with intricate fabrics, indigenous peoples typically adopted distinct styles of clothing, such as body paint, feather adornments, and minimal fabric coverage. Furthermore, physical characteristics are also markedly different. Ancient Semites, such as the Israelites, had traits that included more body hair, something rarely observed among indigenous peoples of the Americas. These genetic, cultural, and historical differences make the theory of a direct connection between the lost tribes of Israel and indigenous American peoples unsustainable. With the advancement of genetic studies conducted on various ethnic groups around the world, ancient theories have completely lost their credibility as they have been widely disproven. Studies such as almond-shaped eyes and very straight hair. Additionally, some indigenous groups display a more brownish skin tone, a result of mixing with ancients of Asian origin, reflecting their ancestry, biblically and logically associated with Togarma. If indigenous peoples of the Americas shared genetic similarities with the Israelites, modern Jews, or other Middle Eastern peoples of Semitic origin, there might be a possibility of considering them as lost tribes of Israel. However, genetic studies reveal that no such similarity exists. In fact, there is no significant genetic relation between indigenous peoples and those from the Middle East. In contrast, populations such as Arabs, Syrians, and Lebanese show a strong genetic proximity to Jews, highlighting their common origin. Therefore, it can be concluded that the indigenous peoples of the Americas cannot be classified as lost tribes of Israel. This finding underscores the importance of advancements in genetics to demystify narratives based on assumption. A theory that has gained popularity recently, similar to the idea that indigenous peoples are descendants of the lost tribes of Israel, is the notion that African peoples also have ancestry linked to these tribes.
ITMO University is one of the best universities' academic system and traditions firsthand through the game Your Life at ITMO. This game is a virtual tour where each level represents a different aspect of studying at ITMO. Here you can interact with various game characters, move between locations of ITMO labs, get to know the grading system, take a walk around St. Petersburg, and much more. Register right now and embark on an exciting journey through ITMO University.
Screen set by Walker. Simons drifts to the baseline. Took a hard hit. And I'm not sure what they were looking at. Outlet pass grabbed by Oh, Shaden Sharp cocked it back. A vicious right-hand hammer. 38-7, 18 left. See it again. The stolen outlet. And then dynamite. Hawk. The line for Carlo. Hawk Makes error, and it's blocked away, but he stays with the play. Taking his off, he will!
Look at this! Wow! Wow! There are certain things you can't teach, Joe. Man!
Pistons basketball. Schroeder will trigger. Basket cut. Asar Thompson. What a play!
This will even be a better look. This young man.
Here's John Collins. A masterful performance tonight. Has the ball knocked out of his hands. Inside. Collins. Walker. 2 hands at home.
To Walker Kessler. Beautiful play. Look at that.
Janet puts the ball down on the floor. Rejected. Denied. Jazz run. Sends the ball. Floated. Oh, wicked. Sends the ball on the dime. The drop in the left hand.
Tatum the first one. Mitchell powers in and throws it down. Donovan Mitchell with authority, and it's back to 10.
And Donovan Mitchell has been very aggressive, bringing it all.
However, this view contrasts entirely with what is accepted by both contemporary Judaism and ancient Jewish traditions, including those of Jews from 1,000 years ago. According to historians like Flavius Josephus, Africans are descendants of Ham, especially from the groups of Cush, Mizraim, and Put, considered the ancestors of African peoples. On the other hand, some theorists argue that these African peoples are actually descendants of the lost tribes of Israel. However, this theory is unsupported by biblical evidence, ancient traditions, or genetics, as there is no genetic similarity between these peoples and those from the Middle East, such as Arabs and Jews. In terms of lineage, therefore, Africans would not be descendants of Semites, but rather of Hamites, that is, of Ham. Moreover, many people claim to be descendants of Jews, but in reality, the only group with Jewish African ancestry are the Ethiopian Jews. Although Ethiopian Jews carry Jewish heritage in their genetics, they are often called Cushitic Jews due to their primary origin as descendants of Cush, which connects them to a large portion of African peoples, including Ethiopians, Eritreans, Somalis, and other groups from the region. Cush, in the Bible, is associated with the ancient kingdom of Cush, which encompassed Nubia, corresponding to modern-day Sudan. On the other hand, indigenous peoples are generally considered descendants of Togarma, a figure mentioned in traditions associated with people who, according to biblical genealogy, stem from Japheth. Africans, for the most part, are thought to be descendants of Ham and his 3 sons, Mizraim, Cush, and Put, whose descendants spread across Libya and other regions of Africa. This understanding aligns more closely with the traditional biblical view and the ancestral history of different cultures. In addition to the aforementioned theory, there are also some European hypotheses suggesting that the ancient Israelites or the lost tribes might be located in Europe. One of these theories argues that the lost Israelites were, in fact, the British or the Anglo-Saxons. However, this idea lacks any solid foundation. Its proponents often make significant translation errors, such as the incorrect interpretation of David's description as a redhead. In fact, in the original Hebrew, the term used refers to a person with reddish or sun-tanned skin, not someone with red hair. Therefore, this theory lacks any reliable historical or linguistic basis, and does not align with the characteristics of European peoples, such as those with blonde or red hair. Ultimately, apart from the various theories claiming that Jews are actually lost tribes of indigenous peoples, African nations, or even certain European groups, these ideas are nothing more than urban legends. These extra-biblical interpretations, often based on misconceptions, are today disproven by both genetics and biblical analysis. The idea that indigenous or African peoples are lost tribes does not hold up, especially when we consider that indigenous civilizations in the Americas, such as the Mayans, Aztecs, and Incas, were already well established long before the formation of the tribes of Israel and the children of Jacob. Moreover, black peoples in Africa are some of the oldest on the planet, existing long before the formation of any Hebrew or Israelite group. African populations were already deeply established in the region, descendants of Cush, Mizraim, and Put, long before the rise of the people of Israel. The big question that arises is, where are these lost tribes mentioned throughout history? In 722 BC, when the Assyrians destroyed Samaria, the Israelite tribes were deported to Assyria. It is important to highlight that, at the time of the deportation, Assyria was in direct conflict with Egypt. Therefore, these tribes were never sent to Africa. If these tribes were truly in Africa, the only possible route would have been through Egypt, which was under Egyptian control. However, the Assyrians and Syrians, historical enemies of Egypt, held the Israelites as prisoners within their territory, with no possibility of fleeing south.
Look at this, getting all the meals ready over here. We've got the team setting it up, inshallah. Food packs over there, young kids, inshallah, another iftar meal. The team working hard behind the scenes over here. May Allah bless you guys. More chicken getting ready as well. Look at this, more chicken. Iftar about to happen. Many of these kids.
Is there any biblical basis suggesting that these lost tribes are actually in Assyria, Syria, or other areas of the Middle East? Yes. In the book of 2 Kings, chapter 17, verse 6, we read, "In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away to Assyria, and he placed them in Hala and Habor, by the river Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes." Over time, many of these Israelite tribes were absorbed by the peoples of the region, including the Assyrians and Syrians who already lived there. Later, the area was conquered by various empires, such as the Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, Parthians, Turks, and finally by the Arabs, with the expansion of Islam. You may ask, this is all from the Old Testament, written in the period of the Chronicles. And what does the New Testament say about it? In the New Testament, we find mentions of people from different tribes of Israel who do not belong to the tribe of Judah. One example of this is in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 2, verse 36, where Anna from the tribe of Asher is mentioned. An example of one of the tribes of Israel that does not belong to the tribe of Judah is the tribe of Benjamin, from which the Apostle Paul, also known as Saul of Tarsus, is one of the most famous representatives. Although there are other verses in the New Testament that mention other tribes, I mentioned these two to illustrate that the Israelites were not completely lost. In fact, the tribes did not disperse to extremely distant places, but suffered conquests and, in many cases, turned away from God, falling into sin. A question that often generates curiosity is the fate of the tribes of Israel, which are actually found in Assyria, Syria, and other parts of the Middle East. Many people wonder about the fulfillment of biblical prophecies related to these lost tribes. The answer is that they will be saved, but in a way different from what was originally imagined. Jesus Christ transformed the Christians into the new Israel, the true people of God. Before God, the distinction between Jews and Gentiles has disappeared. As the Apostle Paul declares, in Christ there is neither Jew nor Greek. It was not by chance that these tribes mixed with peoples from Assyria, Syria, and other regions of the Middle East. This mixing has a purpose, that in the end times these tribes will remember their Israelite heritage, convert to Christ, and be saved. Therefore, all of this is part of the divine plan. Conversion is not based solely on Israelite heritage, but on the recognition that all are part of the heritage of Shem, Noah's son. God's purpose is not to save just one ethnicity or a specific people, but all peoples. Language, origin, or any other characteristic are not decisive. What truly matters is faith in Christ and the acceptance of God as Father. Thus, all those who believe in Christ and become children and servants of God will be saved, not just Israelites or Semites. May God bless you, and see you soon.
Africa's foremost tech business event is back. The largest gathering of tech executives